right at that time. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. If you're joining us on Facebook Live right now, we want to welcome you and would love for you to join us on Zoom so we can have some interactive time on Zoom. And we like to have just a little bit of FaceTime here for 10 or 15 minutes in the middle of the week, create some community while we're all stuck at home or working and having to go straight home. Can't come to church, can't gather like we're used to. So we're going to hang out here for just a couple minutes and let some people hop on. If you are on Zoom, I'd love for you to turn your camera on just so we can have some FaceTime with you. And just going to share something here for a minute. And as we do each week, we like to break up in little prayer groups just for a few minutes. So that's why, again, if you are joining us on Facebook Live, we'd love for you to come on over to onelifeknox.com/Zoom and hop on with us. We'd love for you to do that. Let me see who we've got here on Zoom here for a second. I see Betsy James. Betsy, are you keeping the Corona crazies under control at the Food City? You're muted. Let me unmute you and tell us all about it. Tell us about it, Betsy.
Yeah, I'm trying. No milk slinging lately.
No milk slinging? Is that what you said?
Yeah, no milk slinging lately.
It's called y'all called the
and
Pope.
I've been getting some glue on nails. I got some glue on nails, so I'm okay for now.
Okay, but we can get you that black market nail salon, I'm sure of it.
That would be awesome.
Where there's a payer, where there's a buyer, there's a seller.
I'm paying. I'm definitely paying.
That is awesome. Let's see who else we got. I see Jennifer Ladd. Are you homeschooling, Jennifer? Let me unmute.
Yeah, we did art class yesterday. That's about as good as it got.
Hey, listen. You got to keep the arts alive in homeschool too.
That's right. Art. She wants to do gym today, and I said I might just do that.
We can handle some PE class today. That's right.
Yeah.
That's good. Awesome. Yeah. Good to see everybody. I'm going to hop on over to Facebook just for a second and see who we've got over there. So if you're on Facebook Live, let me just kind of hop over here and see what's going on the Facebook side. But if you're there, we would love for you to join us on Zoom. We have more fun on Zoom because we get to interact with each other, and we take a little time and break up in little prayer groups and just pray for each other. It's a great midweek pick-me-up. So if you can only watch on Facebook, that's okay. But if you are on Facebook and can't hop on over to Zoom, I'd love for you to do something right now, if you can for me. I'd love for you to just type there in the comments some prayer requests that maybe you have, or something that you're going through or that you're dealing with, or just say good morning to us. I see some of y'all saying good morning on here now. Looks like we got some folks joining on Facebook. So let us know that you're here. Again, though, I'd love for you to come over to onelifeknox.com/Zoom and we have a good time over here. So I tell you what, I want to go ahead and get started today. We've got some more folks jumping on, and that's great because we're gonna break up here in a few minutes in our prayer groups. I want to talk about something today that really is kind of as we think about this devotion aspect, is kind of a spillover of a new series that we're going to start next Sunday. So just you guys get a little bit of insider scoop here. We're going to wrap up our Promises series in our virtual micro churches this Sunday. And then next Sunday, we're going to start a new series because as I was kind of thinking and praying about kind of where we are in this weird phase that we're in, but yet we might be in this micro church phase for a while. What does our church need to know? And in talking to other pastors and in talking with lots of church people, here's what I've realized is really happening during this kind of pandemic virus time. And that is we're all learning to what we would call in like leadership world to redefine the win. And I think that's a really good thing that's happening. And that's what I want to talk to us about today for just a minute is I bet if you think back to your life 5 or 6 weeks ago and how you would have defined success, and you fast forward to your life today and how you would define success, I bet it's different. In fact, I hope that it's different. Because what this has done for all of us, as Frankie talked about last week on our devotion time, is this has stripped away a lot of the things that we thought were important, and it's now led us to a time where we have to redefine the win. And I'll just give you some examples. When you were a kid, you would have defined a successful day by, you didn't have to go to school. You got to eat pizza for lunch. You got to stay up late. You got to play outside. You got to do whatever you wanted to do. Ice cream for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like that was a successful day when you were 7 or 8 years old. That was your win, right? But then as you grew up, your win changed. When you turned 16 years old, a win or a successful day was not those things anymore. It was having a car, having a driver's license, maybe having a girlfriend, having a boyfriend, being popular, first string on the team. Your idea of success changed, right? Then as you graduated high school and whether you went to college or you moved out and got your first apartment, the definition of success changed. It became getting the job, getting the raise, getting into the program you wanted, graduating college, becoming successful. All throughout our lives, the definition of success changes. Then something happens, we become adults, and as an adult, success begins to be defined by society, really. Success is maybe it's having a home, it's having a retirement account, it's getting married, it's having children, it's having grandchildren, it's getting to retire, it's having 2 cars, it's going on vacations, and it's my kids being successful, and my kids playing sports, and my kids being in activities, and it's my team winning the games and winning the championships, and we define success. And it's amazing when I think back to 6 or 7 weeks ago, my mood would change because of things that have no value now. I don't know about you, but if Tennessee lost a basketball game, I'd be grumpy for an hour or two, right? Well, that just seems asinine now, right? I mean, they didn't even get to finish the season, 5 or 6 or 7 weeks ago, if a good nap, Curtis holds up a sign. Yeah, that is still of value, right? I mean, that still matters. But 5 or 6, 7 weeks ago, if it wasn't sports, it was, I got home at 5:30 instead of getting home at 6 or 6:30. Well, now I'm home all the time. Like that doesn't matter anymore. Maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago, it was, I'd be happy if I got to go out to eat, a couple times each week, or if the bank account had an extra 0 or 2 that now it doesn't have. So all the things that define success for us 6 or 7 weeks ago, it's as if the rules have changed because the game's completely changed, right? And I think about this with the college students that I work with at UT. 6 or 7 weeks ago, success for them was getting to class on time and getting to the weight room on time and getting to the games that they were assigned to on time. Well, now they're all at home. Success has completely changed. Success for your kids has changed. It's gone from getting the grades and studying. I mean, so we could go on and on all day, but we all have realized the definition of success has changed. And here's the opportunity that we have. And here's what I want us to talk about today for just a minute. Is God's word tells us over and over and over and over again that he wants to redefine success for us anyway. So one of the ways that I have really embraced and enjoyed embracing this season that we're in is God is allowing us to redefine success. And there's a passage of scripture that I want to share with you today that comes from Matthew, and Mark, and it's Jesus talking. And he basically says, I want to redefine for you what success is. I want to redefine for you what the win of this life really is all about. And he says it this way in Mark chapter 8, verse 34. If you want to turn there, if not, I'm going to kind of share my screen here so you can see this thought that I want to share with you. But in Mark chapter 8, Jesus, he says this. He says, then calling the crowds to join his disciples, Jesus said, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must, and look at this right here, it's so huge, you must give up your own way. And that's huge because I don't know about you, but that's where I want to kind of stop reading. I'm not very good at reading much beyond that. Like, wait a second, Jesus, I want to continue doing it my way, and you just come alongside me and make it better, right? So success is going to be my definition of success, and I just want Jesus to come along and bless that. I just want Jesus to come along and be kind of on board with my definition of success. But Jesus says, no. Listen, if you're going to do this thing, there's a price to pay. But what's amazing is in a time like we're facing right now, it's actually a good thing because I don't have to be in control. I don't have to be in charge. The pressure's off me. My way wasn't going to work anyway. So I can let that go. And if I was still hanging on to it, then you know what the last few weeks have done? It has stripped me of my way. And so Jesus, to go on with what the verse says there, Jesus says this. He says, listen, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way and you must do something different. You must take up your cross and follow me. Now, Jesus is, of course, he's kind of foreshadowing here what's going to happen to him. But really what he's saying here is they would have understood the idea of a cross. He's saying, look, you have to take up your instrument of death. Okay, how's that for a bring them in and pack the pew sermon? That's not going to really do it, is it? He's saying you have to take up your instrument of death, your instrument of suffering, and follow me. You have to bear the burden and follow me. Give up your way and redefine success. And here's how he says, because that sounds pretty challenging, right? Like if I told you all today, thanks for coming to the midweek, lunch break devotional and prayer. Here's what you got to do. You got to just give everything up and die. and follow Jesus. You're like, okay, I'm logging out. It's not the hopeful message that I needed. But see, Jesus goes on to say, let me tell you why I'm saying that. I'm going to redefine success for you. And it's a very, very good thing. All right. Especially in a time like we've been in. He says this in the next verse. He says, I didn't share my screen. Let me go back to sharing the screen here. He says, this is why it's important that you do that. Because if you try to hang on to your life, you are going to lose it. Now, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of when I grew up in southwestern Virginia and my dad would teach me how to drive in the snow. I had to learn, and I remember him following me home from work. I worked at a little radio station, and I had to stay late one night when it was pouring down snow. And when I got out off of work, there's like 6 inches of snow. And so my dad said, I'm not driving you home. You're going to drive home. That's what dads are good at, right? You're going to drive home, and I'm going to follow. Actually, he said, you're going to follow me so you don't go too fast. And I thought that was kind of an interesting strategy. I guess he'd rather me crash into him than somebody else. So he said, you're going to follow me. And here's the deal. Don't go any faster than I go. And if the car starts to get out of control, if you start to slide, turn into the slide, it's so counterintuitive. That's why East Tennesseans can't drive in the snow. Because when you start to slide, you feel like you're supposed to jerk the steering wheel the other way. But my dad said, no, it's counterintuitive. If you begin to slide, you turn into the slide. And when I began to work in NASCAR, all the race car drivers would say the same thing. When the car starts to slide, you turn into the slide. It's counterintuitive. And Jesus says the same thing here. He says, listen, if you try to hang on to your life, that seems intuitive. That's what people will tell you to do. Hang on, you can do it. It's the American way, right? Like pull yourself up by the bootstraps. But Jesus says, no. If you try to do that, something's going to happen. If you try to hang on to your life, you are going to lose it. So that can't be the definition of success anymore. You have to give up your own way and do it differently. You can't hang on to your own life because you're going to lose it. And then here's this word. I've talked about it so much over the years at One Life. But if you give up your life for my sake and for the sake of the good news, you will save it. So what he says here is here's a new paradigm. Give up the life that you knew. Okay, give up your definition of success and let me redefine success for you. Success is not living for the job, the career, the family, the status, the acclaim, the friends, the popularity. Success is defined by me and the gospel, Jesus says. And here's how he totally redefines it. And here's what we're going to talk about in just a moment when we break up into our groups. He says this. He says, because of that, I have a question for you. What do you benefit if you gain the whole world, which would be your way? That would be my way. Okay, that's the American way. What would it benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? So what Jesus does here is he says, I want you to get an eternal perspective here. Okay, that's what I want you to do. I want you to stop thinking the way you're used to thinking. I want you to stop defining success the way you're used to defining success. You are used to defining success, and I am used to defining success materially and tangibly. Churches are honestly the worst at this. Okay, churches are the worst at this because you know what I'm seeing happen now in churches, and I'm not meaning to beat up on churches, but churches are now pretending like they had, we used to have 500 people attend our church on Sundays, and now we have 20,000 watching online. We're successful, and it's like, no, not so fast, right? What good does it do if they're just watching a service? What good does it do if they log on, log off, log on, log off? Like, we're defining success the wrong way, but that's tangible. And I like to count what I can see, right? We do it in our own lives. We're used to defining success by the numbers on the paycheck and the numbers in the bank account and the numbers of bedrooms in the house and the numbers of cars and the numbers of children, the numbers of years until I retire. We're used to counting success by the world standards. And Jesus says, I want you to think of it differently. I want you to think of it this way. What good does that do? And I love that. What do you benefit if you even gained the whole entire world, but you lost eternity? You lost sight of eternity. Is anything worth more than eternity, your soul? And so here's what I think is beautiful about where we are. This is what we're going to talk about in just a moment. Is where we are right now in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic and in people being shut down and now all the politics that's coming with it and when should we open back up, when we shouldn't. And we're hearing crazy things like We may not be able to do gatherings of more than 50 people until there's a vaccine, and that just terrifies some people in some churches. And like, whoa, time out. It doesn't have to. You know why? Because we are going to define success the way Jesus would. We're going to let Jesus and the gospel be our success. Let me tell you how this changes everything, and then we're going to break up and talk about it. We are going to decide that success is no longer how many people come to our church, but how many people are engaging with Jesus. We're going to decide that success for my family is not, are my kids the first string of the AAU team? Because there is no AAU team. We're going to define success as a family not as, how many friends we have or how successful we are. We're now going to define success by eternity standards. And so what I think has probably happened for you, I know it's happened for me, is the last few weeks have stripped away what I used to use to define success. As a pastor, I can no longer celebrate how many people come to church on Sunday because we don't have church on Sunday. God has forced me to redefine success. As a father, I can no longer define success by how many runs Aaron scores in a baseball game. There's no baseball. I can no longer define success by how well Mary Claire's doing in guitar lessons. There are no guitar lessons. I can no longer define success at how well my children are doing in school, because even though our kids' school is still meeting, they're not even giving grades. I can no longer define success for my family by how well my wife's business is doing, because the business is closed. So God has put me, and I'm sure you as well, in a place where success has been completely redefined. And I want you to know that's a good thing, that Jesus told his disciples thousands of years ago, and now we get to live it. That it's really a good place to be. It's a good place to be where everything gets stripped away and nothing is left except for Jesus. So what I want you to wrestle with today, if you're watching on Facebook, I want you to wrestle with this idea. What has God stripped away during this time? But it's really a blessing, because it's allowing you to focus on what good was that if I gained the whole world, but in the process lost sight of eternity. What good was that if I gained everything in my job and my career and my family that I wanted, but it came at the expense of my relationship with Jesus? Now it's all gone. So now I can focus on Jesus and the gospel, because I want to go back one more time to one of the verses that we read, and it's this verse that came in the middle right here. But if you give up your life for my sake and for the sake of the good news, you're actually going to save it. And so what I want you to think about is this question here. And then I want you to talk about this in our breakout groups we're about to do here on Zoom. And if you're on Facebook right now, I'd love for you to jump over onelifeknox.com/Zoom and get into a little discussion group and prayer group. But I want you to talk about this in your breakout groups. First of all, what has God stripped away from your life? What has he allowed you to lose in the last 5 or 6 weeks? That has also in turn allowed you to focus more on him. Maybe it's caused you to rely on him more. Maybe it's given you more time. Maybe it's given you perspective. But what has God done in your life? What has he taken away from the world's way of defining success? What tangibles has he removed? And he's put instead an opportunity for you to measure success by Jesus. And then I want you to pray as a group. Let's pray differently today. We've been trying to do this as a staff every morning when we meet on Zoom. Instead of saying, what does each person need us to pray for today? Let's do it this way. I want you to pray for each other and share, here's how I want God to continue to refine me. Here's how I want him to continue to whittle this away. I want him to continue to redefine success for me. Maybe you're hanging on to success is when I get the stimulus check. I'm hanging on to success is when I get to go back to work or get to go back to church, and that's when I'll feel okay again. And maybe we need to confess that together and pray for each other, that we will just let success be defined as Jesus and the gospel. So I'll send you out some messages to give you some prompts, but those are the two things you're going to do in our Zoom groups. Talk about what God has allowed you to lose so that you could focus more on him or you could grow more in him. And then second of all, we're going to pray that continues to happen. So if you're watching on Facebook, so glad you joined us today. We'll be here again next week, but I'm going to keep pushing and promoting. Come on over to Zoom. We'd love to have you there. If you're not in a micro church, this is a little taste of it. So we'd love to get you in a micro church. So if you're on the call today on Zoom and you're not plugged into a micro church that meets like this a couple times each week, we want to get you involved in one. So let us know. But we'll see you on Sunday. Have a great week and have a great discussion time. We'll see you soon.